the program, and you're with me, Gamma Coffee. Welcome to the second episode of Are We Victims as Africans? Is Africa a victim of other continents? Why is it that Africa, up until today, 60 years of independence, we haven't yet realized the need for us to make our own decisions, the need for us to find our own way, our own path? Why is it that we always seek for validation from the Europeans? Why we always seek for wisdom from the Asians? Why is it that we as Africans in our own continent, people that we always say we love the continent that we are in, we cannot sit down and say this is how we want our Africa to be, this is exactly the direction, the need and the purpose for us to go in this direction? Because we know once we have realized the potential in us, it will be easier for us to formulate or to go into a direction that we always dream and talk about. Africa on Trial is the program. Gamma Coffee is my name. France has been holding the nation reserves for 14 African countries since 1961, forcing 14 African countries to pay France the colonial tax for the benefit of the slavery and the colonization. Why would we let this happen in Africa? Why is it that the governments in Africa, all of them together, are still sitting silently, allowing France, after fighting for independence, after rebelling ourselves and say we are free, we are still paying? Is this the freedom that Africa we talk about? Masses in these countries who are still suffering, whose healthy facilities, education systems are still deteriorating, still government is still taking money, paying the government of France, thanking France for colonizing them, for enslaving them. Is Africa a victim of other continent? Are we victims as Africans? It's shocking, but it's happening in Africa. France all alone right now, they've managed to collect 500 billion United States dollars from these 14 African countries. If we can visit each and every country that we're talking about, we will see that these countries, they are still poor. They don't even have their own currency. The currencies that they're using is still the one that the colonial masters impose on them. The colonial masters dictate these countries to follow instructions. Looks like there is no way out for these countries. AU, African Union, what are they doing? If they don't know about these things, then what are they doing in office? 54 presidents, what is it they talk about if they don't talk about this issue? What is it that they discuss if they cannot sit down and say, look at these 14 countries, the one that France is abusing, exploiting? There is no way any African country has to pay money to France, thanking them for enslaving us, for colonizing us. In short, thanking France for raping 14 African countries. Africa as the mother Africa. We allow 14 children out of the 54 children that Africa has to be raped, and the rest of the children decide to keep quiet. What is it that our leaders are doing? Are they there just to enrich themselves, prepare their life after office? Are they there to save us as the citizens of this continent? AU, we need that 500 billion back to the 14 African countries that have been exploited with France. We need that money to come back. If France won't be able to return that money, then we asking for the disbandment of the AU, because it means these African countries, they have no one to protect them. They are doing things on their own. If they can fight and lose the battle, they fight on their own, they lose on their own. There is no organization that protects them. There is no organization that they can stand and say that organization is going to protect us. There is no point for these 14 countries to be the member of an organization that we expecting to protect the continent of Africa. All 54 countries to be protected, yet it's still quiet, does not concern on the affairs of each and every member of its organization. It means there is something wrong with the organization. The disbandment of the first organization, we thought it would lead to something meaningful. Maybe the OAU, they had a big dream for Africa, to unite Africa. It failed. At least they fought for something that we know it could have give birth to something big. It could have give birth to something that Africa we could have hold on to. Now you disbanded that, and we thought AU, you will have the name, but we've seen that AU itself, it's more weaker than the OAU. AU, it's just another puppet of the colonial masters, white supremacy, the one that we fight with in Africa. The freedom that we're enjoying now is the freedom that others died for. Others were imprisoned, exiled for us to be where we are now. Are we going back for others to come and colonize us? Are we going back? Are we allowing the same system that our forefathers fought for us to be here? Yet we allow ourselves today to go again into the same systems. This time around, with all the technology that is in the world, this colonization will be the dangerous one than the one that our forefathers saw. If the AU is not able to retrieve the 500 billion United States dollars that France has been collecting from 14 African countries, AU, be disbanded. We would rather have no organization to stand as an African Union than to have a union that we know it's useless, toothless, and we know it has nothing to do with the African continent. If Africa has an organization that can fight for us, then we would probably know that there is an organization that speaks on our behalf, an organization that cares about the affairs of the African continent. It is the responsibility of the AU, the African Union, to ask France kindly return the money, or else all French people should leave Africa. We should stop thinking that these white people, the ones that are in Africa, they are here to help us. When they come here to Africa, it's exploitation after exploitation. If AU won't be able to have time to question France, where is the money that you've been taking from 14 African countries from the year 1961 to 2020, we need that money back into the countries that you've been exploiting. They've been working for you without getting anything in return. Actually, France was supposed to pay these 14 countries for colonizing them, enslaving Africans, using us for free. Now we're seeing that the one who is supposed to pay us, we are paying them. The AU, if you don't see anything wrong in this one, then there's no point to have AU. There's no point to have this organization called the African Union, whereby the countries that are members of the AU are not being protected. 14 African countries giving money to France, thanking France for the benefit of slavery and colonization. Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo-Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Are we victims as Africans? Is Africa a victim of other continents? Our leaders, when they meet, what is it that the leaders talk about when they are in Ethiopia? Gamma Coffee is my name, and Africa on Trial is the program, the contract that the French government gave these countries to sign. It's not in favor of all the 14 countries that we're talking about. They've been victimized from 1961 to 2020. Imagine all these small countries that we're talking about in Africa. The countries that their GDP does not even match, cannot stand on a global scale and say these countries, they're doing something on their own. These countries depend on the whole continent of Africa to stand with them. These countries need the AU to be there to protect them. These leaders here, they are quiet, they cannot say much. They've seen the coup d'etats that have been happening in the past. They've seen how the African leaders in the countries that were colonized by France, how they were being killed. Take a minute and think about these things. If these 14 countries are the ones that we know that are being exploited, how many more African countries are being exploited and they're not willing to come out? Until when are we gonna stand silent pretending that everything is okay? There is no point Africa should continue borrowing. There's no point Africa should asking for loans. There's no point Africa should seek for aid. Africa is rich. We know this how. These 14 countries, they are paying France. France is surviving because the 14 countries are putting money together to make France rich. If you know France the way it is, it's because of these 14 countries in Africa. These 14 countries, the moment they will stop, that will be the end of France. But they cannot do this on their own. They need the whole continent of Africa. This is the call for us as Africans. We have to deal with this situation. I'm talking to you, the youth in these 14 countries that are being exploited. Talking about the youth in Africa, the whole continent of Africa. I'm talking to you because the youth are the majority, are the ones who are suffering. We are the ones who are not getting the jobs in Africa. Now imagine if your country is paying money to France, it means the development in your country, it's at a standstill. The development that you could have get a job in your country, those chances are not there. Now France is able to create jobs in France for their children in France, for them to keep on developing the nation wealthy. The nation wealthy in Africa has been put on hold. Why? Because the money is going to France. This is war that is being fought against the African countries, against the African continent. It's meant for us Africans not to win this war. As long as we are looking at ourselves as countries, as long as we take each and every issue in Africa as a national issue, as a country issue, this battle, it's meant for us to be the losers. The only way we can do this and the only way we can win from these battles is for us as Africans to come together as one African continent, as an atomy. That's the only way we can stand and fight these battles. Are we still willing to be colonized even in the year 2020? Are we still willing to be subject of another country from 1961 to 2020? And the AU is doing nothing to stop this. Which side are the African leaders on? Which team are they playing? Are they with us as the African citizens to fight the colonial masters, to to push them back to say, enough of you, you've taken too much in our continent. We know the exploitation that you've done, yet we still allowing them to come over and over again to victimize us, to make us less of human. Are we not capable of doing things on our own as Africans? If the youth in Africa won't stand together to say enough of these politicians, Africa on Trial always say that African politicians, they are in office preparing for life after office. They are not in office to save the agendas of the countries that they represent. They are not in office to save the agendas of the African continent. They don't care about us as the citizens. Africa on Trial is the program, and Gamma Coffee is my name. Are we victims as Africans, or is Africa a victim of other continents? Before I go, I just want to leave you with this video. Watch this video. Love you all. See you next week. Stay blessed.
Berlin, 1885. German Chancellor Bismarck, the most powerful man of his time, invites to his palace 16 diplomats from the leading Western countries to sit together around a table. Their aim, to divide up between themselves a continent, Africa. And they will succeed. On a wall hangs a newly drawn 5-meter-high map of Africa, a huge table, and of course, no black people present. And 6 months of secret talks, noble declarations, bargaining. 6 months to dream of gold, ivory, and all the promised wealth of this new Eden, even though it is still called terra incognita. In a dusty corner of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Berlin, a trunk which has remained unopened for 120 years. Inside, the transcriptions of the Berlin Conference. Every single word pronounced was written down in that protocol. A racialist vision of the world deeply engraved in the mind. Berlin, 1885. They draw lines on the maps. These lines are still the borders of Africa today. Berlin, 1885. The scramble for Africa.